Hey everybody, Matt Johnston here with another COVID-19 legal update. Our friends at the Department of Labor have been busy working and have provided a few notices that everybody should be aware of. The first is that ending on Friday was the end of the Department of Labor's temporary non-enforcement period for the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, or the FFCRA. Just as a reminder, the FFCRA provides for paid sick leave and expanded Family and Medical Leave Act leave that's available under this particular law. So they also issued some guidance, or updated more specifically their guidance related to these sorts of questions. Now, dealing with these regulatory changes, I know, can be very frustrating. The uncertainty is real. And it's just as frustrating for us because the advice that I gave last week is now being changed. And so for that, I'm sorry. There's also a fairly likelihood, as more questions come up and are posed to the Department of Labor, that the guidance that I'm about to say could also change, but hopefully not. So here's the deal. Under the federal paid sick leave, the PSL, the employer may not require an employee to use their own company-issued or company-allowed PTO concurrently. So the paid sick leave is over and above and in addition to any company-issued PTO leave. However, an employer can require an employee to use the paid sick leave for the first 2 weeks of the 12 weeks of expanded FMLA. So the employer can say, all right, you need to take time off to shelter in place, to care for a child, or the other reasons available under the FFCRA. Fine. You must use paid sick leave for the first 2 weeks. Okay, and the employee has a requirement. So then comes the question of the expanded FMLA, or EFMLA. Now, under what some people are calling classic FMLA or the original FMLA, so under that standard FMLA, an employee is entitled up to 12 weeks of unpaid time off for certain purposes, to care for a newborn, to recover from illness, things of that nature. That's was permitted, and that applied to employers with 50 or more employees and a few other conditions. EFMLA applies to all businesses in the United States with 500 or fewer employees, including small businesses. The big difference is that EFMLA, the leave is paid if the leave is being used for the purposes of caring for a child whose school or daycare facility has been closed. And under normal circumstances, that unpaid leave is now converted into paid leave. Now, an employer can require an employee to use concurrently with the EFMLA to use company-provided PTO. So let's assume for a moment that a company has 10 days of paid time off for employees that are given every year. The employer can require employees to use that paid time off concurrently with the third and fourth weeks of EFMLA. So the first 2 weeks are covered by the paid sick leave. The second 2 weeks are covered by PTO, by company-issued PTO, and you can also require the concurrent use of any state-mandated paid sick leave or unpaid sick leave. So you can require those things to happen concurrently. So that leads to the question of how the tax credits will be managed, and the tax credits they're kind of fun. It's going to be a little crazy. So here's how I think this will work. Okay. If the PTO and the EFMLA run concurrently, the employer can only get tax credits for the 2/3 of the employee's regular rate of pay. So if the employee is paid $15 an hour and they're required by the employer to take their paid time off during the use of the EFMLA, then that employer only gets the tax credit for the $10, 2/3 of the pay. So that's how that will work. At least that's how the Department of Labor is saying it's working. I'm assuming, but you have to be careful with that assumption, that the DOL is also working with the IRS to have a similar interpretation. We will see. So in the meantime, if you're going to have people taking EFMLA to care for kids or to because the schools are out or something like that, then you're going to be in a situation where you can require them to use their PTO concurrently with their EFMLA. I know that's confusing. I know that's a lot of mouthful, and I know it might not answer every question. So if you do have further questions, please let me know. We will certainly do our best to respond to those questions. Just as a reminder, Tuesdays and Fridays we do have open Zoom office hours. No charge. You can call. You can get into the Zoom, and we'll answer whatever questions you may have to the best of our ability. And we also have the ability to schedule private conversations for 15 minutes or so, and you can see that down below as well. I will also put a link to the Department of Labor's new interpretation and guidance that I just talked about, so you can read it for yourself. I'm sorry. Hopefully I was a little bit more clear than what the Department of Labor is. In the meantime, stay safe, and we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.